It was spring in the year 1115 when our Lord Sultan, Grand Emperor of all Calradia, laid siege to Carbanseth. The master at arms had been regularly taking the tasks that needed doing, ones Partia would usually insist on doing himself, and the siege camp had been set up flawlessly. They had left their Lord Sultan under the care of his chambermaid and set about their duties one and all. It was when Dhil came in to announce the readiness for attack that they knew something was terribly wrong. The maid looked frightened and saddened, like she had been weeping and yet also pleading to Aserai for mercy. "What?" Dhil started. "You will not wake? I have tried and tried." The maid had interrupted Dhil, expecting the questions that would surely come, questions of how their invincible, immortal Lord Sultan had been felled. Of course, she had surmised, they will blame me as an assassin and hang me for all to see, like the barbarians they are. No, you need to come back to us, Partia Ali. "Have you tried shaking him?" asked Dhil. Meridia, the maiden, pointed at their lord's chest where his robes were wet. I thought I ought not pour water on his face. Should he wake, he would surely have me hanged." Dhil let out a hearty laugh from his belly, trying to calm the poor girl before her heart gave out from fright. He was not really so confident that their lord would indeed wake, but he kept that doubt hidden away so deep it could never be found. Picking up the carafe of wine on Partia's bedside table, he looked over at the young maiden. "Meridia, if our lord finds fault with anyone, let it fall solely on me." With that, he stuck his arm out over their sultan, carafe in hand, and hesitated a moment, looking down to see if their lord was perhaps playing a trick on them. No cracking of the eyelid to peek out from behind the veil of darkness, just the peaceful look their Lord Partia had only when he slept. Dhil cautiously started pouring wine on the head of his own sultan. There was still no reaction, so Dhil increased the stream of wine, covering the royal face in royal drink. Partia stirred, and Dhil and Meridia both stooped low by the aid of their beloved lord. They looked at him for more signs of life. "My beloved," came a raspy, hollow voice. "You have come to bring me to Aserai. Alas." Dhil jumped up and poured out the rest of the wine from the carafe. It splashed all over their sultan and caused quite the mess, but it had the desired effect. They could hear the sounds of siege engines letting loose and arrows cutting the air. "No, my lord, I have come to tell you of our readiness for battle. If you prefer to sleep, we could just handle this ourselves." "No," came a slightly stronger voice, nearly resemblant of their Lord Partia. "When I die, it should be in battle. As my beloved went, so shall I, giving all, to give our children the world." Partia sat upright with great effort. He gave a grunt as he forcefully turned his legs and body so as to rise from his bed. Dhil and Meridia exchanged looks that needed no words to speak their truth. Their Lord Sultan Partia al-Eat, head of the clan Ashkas, Sultan of the Aseraian Sand Seas, Lord of Horses, Lion of the North, Bane of his foes, Golden Eagle of the Imperial Seal, Tamer of all Calradia, Protector of Aserai's virtues, and rightful ruler of all, may not live to see another day. They gently fastened his armor, taking the time to inspect Partia's body for any unnoticed punctures or bites. Having seen their lord equipped and onto his horse, they'd been satisfied that there was no foul play. Partia al-Eat was dying, and there was nothing anyone could do. Dhil had Meridia write a letter from Partia's own drawing table and to send copies of the letter to all the lords of Calradia after sending ones to his clan and family. After seeing that last task was being fulfilled, Dhil rode on his own horse alongside Partia. "If you are to die in this battle, let me die protecting you, my lord." What was this feeling? Tiredness, aching limbs, trembling hands, and difficulty to focus. He froze and shivered and at the same time was burning up. So they said that it was a fever that wouldn't let go. None of the potions, bombs, or ointments worked, and with tears in his eyes, so they had said that it was time. Time was running out. Partia had swiftly rushed the sieges of the last Battanian cities, joining his men at the front line, swinging Valdim like a madman. though scarce was the swings that hit home. His tired limbs ached, and his head was spinning too much. He looked to the forest with old eyes, wiping a tear with a hand wrinkled and scarred from a lifetime of war. He was so close to the ultimate victory, a unified Calradia, a new world order that knew no wars, no hardships or conflict, a world that he wanted to leave to his children. So what was this feeling? It was impending death, cold and scorching at the same time, slow and hastily at the same time. Not a swift and brutal death on the battlefield, black iron mask adorned and Valdem defiantly raised with a battle roar screaming for vengeance. A slow death, from old age, but still too hastily, for his work wasn't done. He would leave some work for his children. That pained him greatly, but he was still proud. He still believed in his children to have the strength to carry the torch of the Ashkasi way and lead their people on the journey to the future. And so Partia thinks time has run out. The sand has run all the way down the hourglasses he used to admire. His usually so efficient equipment of war has turned against him, and now his time was up. But he guessed he should have known that time would not wait for him. It never waited to claim his family, his loved ones, and many members of the Ishkas, his friends. God, he thought, how many his time claimed? And now it was his turn. The many wounds he had sustained throughout the years had finally become too much. In his old age, his body was wrecked beyond any healer's careful touch, and now these night fevers would kill him. But he knew it. He had been told that nothing could be done, and that he should prepare for what was to come. He was sure the healers had meant for him to return to his homelands and die slowly and peacefully in his bed, but that had never been the Lion's way. No. He would continue the fight until the very moment when time and the gods themselves would see fit to force his final breath away from him. Now, knowing that he was dying, he did not fear his enemies' blades nor arrows, and he would be truly damned if he did not accomplish what he had spent his entire life trying to do. He would have peace in his time, or he would at the very least leave his enemies so defeated, so broken and lost, the only thing remaining was a useless shadow. Just a ghost in the night that his children would not fear, and come one morning, that ghost would fade truly into nothing. Just because he might not live to see that morning, he would make it so. Yes, I will have peace in my time, what little I have left. Wake up, please. Partia woke from his shallow sleep to a familiar voice. No, I must be dreaming. You're not here. This cannot be real. Arwa, my dearest, tell me this was all a dream, a bloody, horrible dream. Tell me we are still together. Partia, the Lion of the South, broken into tears in his bed. Father? It's me, Fatima, your daughter. You sent for me. Mother is long dead. She stuttered, realizing what she just said so easily. No, she is not dead, not truly. I see her in your face, I hear her when you speak. I was a fool not to keep you closer for these years. The Sultan seemed older than ever, melting away in a deluge of emotions. Suddenly, he propped himself on his elbows and shouted, "This is all nonsense. Send for Elkiria. She has the proper herbs to heal all my diseases, words to mend all dark thoughts. Where is she?" Uday sighed, put his hand on the old man's shoulder, and spoke softly. "My lord, she is not around to help you now. I will have to suffice. Please, have some rest now." Partia crumbled, nodded, and laid back, falling back to feverish sleep almost instantly. Sudais looked onto the gathered group. "I'm afraid there is no hope for him. His body is dying, and his soul longs for eternal rest. Aserai is calling him, but he did what he had to. In a moment of lucidity, he wrote down what has to be done after his passing. Please, obey and fulfill his last wishes. He wants to see you united, ruling over United Calradia. a peaceful land for all the people. I am Aftab of Banu Alit, son of Partia al-It, founder of the Ashkasi Empire and the clan which rules it. This collection of writings from orators, authors, historians, and my father's diary has come, some would say, to its conclusion. The missive that called me to revel was troubling. He had sent for me with great urgency, his words upon the vellum, written by another's hand. He had been feeling frail of late, and last I saw him there was a quiver in his hand, not the kind his men saw on the field of battle, but the kind only one's family and close friends might notice. His ailments had worsened, though he did not say as much in the letter. He didn't need to. My arrival was without pomp and ceremony. The world could not suspect what was about to pass, as the vultures soared endlessly overhead. He welcomed me with what little strength he could muster, and bestowed upon me a plethora of gifts. His armor had been adjusted to better fit my frame, his beloved axe sharpened, and perhaps with hang or head replaced, I could not tell. His sword, his horse were all to be mine, his bow, which I could not even draw, was given to me as well, and I was even put in charge of nearly his entire host. He would ride one last time as a mere merchant. No mask, no arms, no armor. Aftab, he could barely croak out my name. I had hoped to give you a land united, free of war and the troubles that I have seen. His voice quivered like his hands. He had failed me, he claimed, and he would not let me speak otherwise. I could merely smile and nod and accept what he told me. I was his child, after all, and whether I was 6 or 60, he wished to impart his wisdom onto me. Perhaps if I had lived a little longer. No, never mind that. May you be the one to bring all that I could never give them. He spoke, of course, of my brother and sister. He wished for them not to know war, just as he had wished it for me. But alas, I would not be so fortunate. And so we rode together to war, perhaps for the first time ever, and certainly for the last. We rode hard and fast, east to the steppe, with every intent to do battle for Cyronia, where my father had told my brother and sister to meet him for one last farewell. So let it not be said that my father surrendered. And when the shaking continued in the heat of the imperial plains, his men and the emirs finally took notice. This was not the shivering of the blasted northern cold, but the war between Partia's will and Aserai's pull to the heavens. Still we rode. Day and night we rode, and then one day, at the head of his tremendous host, Sultan Partia al-It, founder of the Ashkasi Empire and the clan which rules it, slumped over atop his steed and left to embrace my mother. The flames of the funeral pyre burned fierce. They reached to the heavens, and like the fiery light of the sun, they provided us warmth in the night, as my father had during the day. But just as the sun must set, a new sun must rise, and the burdens and sins and goodwill of my father alike fall upon my shoulders. I must speak, but what to say? It is the fate of many to not see their dreams fulfilled, and as we pace these transitory paths through time, do we mark the dream fulfilled as more than the dream itself? We reach ever outwards, and it is the reaching that matters. The dignity of the leaving to others is a mighty thing indeed. And here is where Partia, the Lion of the South, the iron-masked Sultan of the Ashkas, left us, reaching to that far shore and sailing off into another. He did not see the realm united, not completely. A bitter regret, to be sure, but what world has he left behind? In this world, many know peace and prosperity. In this world, many who would have starved are well fed. In this world, progress and knowledge spread inexorably as time itself, and the world is brighter in the sun he raised above so many castle walls than the stars he leaves behind to keep their vigil. It is not the formless darkness that is remembered, but the brief flashes of fire that spark change. The world has changed. The world will change again. But we have seen merchants' sons rise and empires topple. We have lived in the time of giants, and it has been a most sincere honor and privilege to have walked in their footsteps and wonder at their dreams. Sleep soundly, Partia, son of merchants, Emperor Sultan, and let others carry on your work. Tears cannot be seen to besmirch my face, and so the iron mask hides my heart as we ride forth into battle, as a sultan must do his duty, forever till the next. The vassals will need to once more swear fealty to the crown, but these formalities can wait until I have proven myself worthy of it. The opportunity to do so came sooner than I'd expected. In response to the siege of Cyronia, the Kuzait horse lords marched nearly 1,000 strong. They thought us weak after the passing of my father. They thought the young cub of Thab incapable of leading his soldiers. They had forgotten that each Ashkasi soldier fights as good as 10 of any other kingdom. But we were swift to remind them of this fact. Though I had not fought in many battles, my father's teachings and exploits were not lost on me. In his missives to me over the years, he wrote in great detail how he led his battles. Archers in loose formation, infantry in shield wall, cavalry forming a wedge. Most Kuzait soldiers fell before the lines even clashed, and when they did, it was a beautiful slaughter. The horse lords were quick to surrender. Their numbers meant nothing before our banners. Viltol Castle was taken from the Battanians in the north, and the taking of Cyronia went quickly afterwards. My father's advisors, now mine, helped prepare the men as they had done time and time again. Tempted as I was to engage the enemy myself, as I'd done on the open field, I was advised to stand back for the time being. Even the great Partia had suffered many a fall from atop the tower, and many a grave wound when fighting sieges. I cannot suffer the same fate, not so soon after my father's passing. It would be seen as a foul omen. And so the men fought for me. No, I'm not so conceited. The men fought for my father. They fought for his dream. Even in his death, they insisted that it come true. The garrison was quick to fall and retreat into the keep, and there I fought alongside the men, bringing my father's axe to bear and raising my father's banners over the city. Victory was ours. Despite the Kuzait attempts to slow us down, the city had fallen, and Chaikand was next. With most Kuzait lords captured outside the gates of Cyronia, the path to Chaikand would be clear for some time, and we had to take advantage of this opportunity. En route, we gathered fresh recruits, though I was hesitant to do so at first. Scouts reported a garrison over 1,000 strong at what had quickly become a Kuzait stronghold. The siege here would last some time. Starving the garrison out would be unlikely, but I had to wait until some more banners joined mine. The Kuzait threatened our army a few times, and I was somewhat concerned that the garrison might sally forth, but it seems any belief that the Ashkas were weak after Partia had been quickly dispelled. They cowered in fear behind their walls, so we tore them down and struck the city. Their numbers and walls and towers and gates meant naught. Our men pushed through their gates and their breaches in their walls, and though we lost nearly 400 brave warriors, Chaikand was once more under Ashkasi control. Some Kuzait lords tried to retake the city immediately, but they were of little concern. Word reached me shortly thereafter that the Battanians had ventured forth from their frigid homes to take Cyronia, a problem that was easily solved with our reconquest. The city was en route to the last of the Battanian holds, and taking it simply whet the men's appetites for Battanian blood once more. As we continued westward, I brought an end to the war with the Kuzait. We could not leave the east in a state of disarray this close to establishing our complete authority over the lands. I had to ensure that neither I nor my vassals would be distracted by some needless raid or a poorly thought-out attempt at reconquering the steppe. Callias Castle was under siege, and we had to march across the breadth of our empire to protect it and take what was left of the Battanian castles. Aradweir was quick to retreat from Callias Castle, and even quicker to fall in battle. He brought us to the gates of Dreamor Castle, and as our siege began, peace with the Aserai, the Sturgians, and the Valandians came quickly. I knew not to expect them to last. I had seen the meaning of a peace treaty during my father's reign. There was a reason I'd barely gotten to know him, or my mother. Dreamor Castle fell quickly, and as our warriors breached the gates of Dreamor, I received word of Ustakol Castle, another Battanian hold now covered in the red and gold of our people. Pendraic Castle was our next target, and though Bestine marched upon us, we showed once more the strength of our people. My father's tactics were strong, and with a high ground advantage, the battle was won before it begun. Bestine had been killed in battle, the ultimate price for his hubris, and a warning, I had hoped, to any others who might march against us. A short-lived hope, unfortunately. Victory over Pendraic was a given. Though they retreated to the keep, the Battanian garrison stood no chance. Alas, shortly after our victory, the Kuzait decided to renew their war against us despite our mercy, and the Khan Monshug himself decided to place Pendraic under siege. I allowed him to set up his camp and assault the castle. Not only did it give me time enough to acquire more reinforcements, but it whittled his troops down and set our soldiers up for yet another victorious day. The threat in the east had risen once more, and as my vassals raised banners to secure the steppe, I continued my work here. Neviansk was next to fall. And Remtoil the last. It was an odd feeling, I must admit. Every city, every castle, every village across the empire now flew our banners. As fleeting as this moment may be, I had to take a second to celebrate my parents' victory. Everything they had fought for, everything they had paid the price for. From Charas to Chaikan, from Hassan Falk to Penkanik, at Tial the banners were stiff with cold, and at Sanala, faded by the sun. At Ortengard, our banners were the first to see the sun, and at Galand, our banners bid it farewell. Where once stood many kings fighting for their own self-interests, now stood my father's united empire. An empire for the people, forged by the people. He did not live to see this day, but perhaps that is for the best. My father dreamed of the end of war, but once more I leave the West. The Kuzait had declared their war anew, Sturgians and Aserai too. Seems war truly has no end. Seems war is never done. So we still fight and die and hope and pray to see a warless future for our young. I walk up to my lord on his deathbed, my leader, my friend. He still looks as the formidable warrior and the leader we all look up to. He smiles, and I feel honored. Lord Partia, I followed you for many years, since we first met in the tavern of Hassan Falk when you spoke of freedom. Not just freedom for the Ishkas, but freedom for all. I was but a boy then, son of a butcher, with contempt for my role in life. But hearing your speeches and your tales of victory against the oppressors, I went against my parents' will and joined your army. We had the same dream, freedom. I fought hard, saw most of my friends die next to me, But almost 20 years have passed since then, and I am still here, a proud warrior of the Ashkas, many times promoted. We share the occasional meal or drink on the road, reminisce about battles, lost friends, and speak of our children and our hope for the future. Every time you speak, I feel like I felt then. A young boy listening to someone who speaks the truth. Partia isn't just a person. Partia is within us all. Name your successor, and my sons will fight for him, just as I have fought for you, my liege. It was an honor and a privilege. The Ashkas will remember you forever and fight in your name.